Good morning Year 4 and welcome to Thursday's maths lesson. I would like you to look at the mental arithmetic questions in front of you and pause the video to have a go now. Welcome back Year 4. I'm just going to reveal the answers to the questions so you can mark them please. So looking at the question here on the right hand side, if I've got 1,335 and I subtract 700, then one strategy is to subtract 300, taking me to 1,035, and then to subtract another 400. Hence known that 6 and 4 make 10, 600 and 400 make 1,000. I've got the answer 635. 96, add 7. Add 4 takes me to 100. Add 3 more is going to take me to 103. 9,605. I've got to add 700. If I add 400, it takes me to 10,005. And then I've still got to add on another 300. Hence, I'm left with 10,305 as my final answer. So today we are going to be recognising tenths and hundredths as decimals. In order to be successful, we need to recognise tenths and hundredths in lots of different ways. We are going to be placing our decimal tenths and our decimal hundredths on a number line. And we're also going to be solving a variety of problems involving decimals. So let's first of all have a look at tenths as decimals. So we are familiar with a PartWhole model. This is what's on the screen at the moment, and we've used this lots of times throughout the autumn term. So pause the video, grab a piece of paper, see if you could fill in what would go in either of the circles. So welcome back Year 4. Well, I've got 38 100ths. Well, I could put 38 in here, but then I'd have to put 0 over here. One way to split 38 100ths into two parts is to think of it as 3 tenths and 8 hundredths. Now, if any of us are confused by that, what we need to remember is that 3 tenths is the same as 30 hundredths. 30 hundredths and 8 hundredths is going to give me my 38 hundredths. Let's have a look at the fraction, or let's have a look at tenths represented in a different way. I've got a bar. I can see that it's cut into 5 pieces across the top, 5 pieces across the bottom, so I'm looking at tenths. So I know therefore that my denominator is going to be 10, and that my numerator, if I'm thinking of the green part, is going to be 6. Now, to write that as a decimal, because I haven't got the whole bar, haven't got a whole, I can't put a 1, so I need to put a 0. And I've got 6 tenths, 0.6, 0.6 is the same as 6 tenths. And lots of us know from our place value work during the year, if this is the ones column, my tens column would be here. This is going to be my tenths column. This would be my hundredths column if I needed it. So let's have a look at a number line then. How would we represent tenths on the number line? Well, over here at the end of the number line, I've got my whole. So if I'm going to try and put 0.1, which is 1/10, then it's going to need to go here. Effectively, I have got 10 pieces on this number line. I've got 1, 2, 3, and so on, and can count up to 10 pieces. So just as if we had a bar of chocolate cut into 10 pieces, and each piece is a tenth, here I've got one piece, which is a tenth. I could have written it like this, but we're writing it in decimals, so I'll write 0.1. No whole, 1/10. This is going to be 0.2. Wonder if you can work out what this one would be. It would be 0.2. 0.7. And this would be 0.3. 3/10, 7/10. Before, my last tenth before my whole is going to be 0.9. And if we were continuing to count 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, I need to be very careful not to say 0.10. Because actually, this number here is actually 1/10. I've actually got 1/10 with no hundredths, 1/10 with no hundredths. So after 0.9, we actually go to 1 or 1.0. And from then on, we would go to 1.1. Sorry, I'm just trying to squeeze that in. Let's just change the color. We would go to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and so on. Another way to represent tenths is using place value counters. So most of us are very familiar with these from work we've done during the year. We know that 0.1 is the same as 1/10. Just going to swap my mouse pad over there. It's just being a little bit difficult. So we've got 1/10. And hopefully you've already worked out that the three counters would give us 3/10. I'm about to, in a moment, start talking about hundredths, but let's just have a quick look at one problem. Catherine's thinking of a number. It comes between 3/10 and 10/10, which is also known as 1/2. The tenth is an odd number. Write down 3 possibilities that Catherine's number could be using decimals. Well, if it's going to come between 3/10 and 10/10, then it's going to have to be 5/10, 7/10, and 9/10. We know that 5/10 is 0.5, so therefore if I was going to write 7/10 as a decimal, it would be 0.7, and if I was going to write 9/10 as a decimal, 0.9, and obviously, although I wrote 5/10 here as a fraction, here was my answer, 5/10 as a decimal. Now I'm about to talk about hundredths of decimals, but at this point you might want to stop today's video and actually have a go at part 1 to your challenge. Part 1 is all about recognizing tenths as decimals. There is a simpler challenge if you're going to choose the Sapphire or Bronze challenge. There is a part 1 challenge on tenths, which is slightly trickier if you're going to do the silver, or if you would like more of a challenge, then you can choose the gold challenge. But it might be worth you starting part 1, and when you've completed part 1, coming back then to watch the second part of the video. The answers to part 1, as you can see, are on the final page. If you just rejoined me, welcome back. And if you're deciding just to watch all of this video first, that is fine as well. Now, hundredths as decimals. Well, this says 72 hundredths. As a decimal, that is going to be 0.72. I always think with decimals and hundredths, it's quite good just to think about how this would relate to pounds. I've got no whole pounds, but I've got 72 pence. We know that £1 is equivalent to 100p. So I've got 72 out of my 100 pennies. So 72 out of my, 72 hundredths out of my pound. And this is how we could write that. So what you can see coloured here then is 72 hundredths. 72 squares out of 100. Because I haven't got the whole, that's the reason that I put the 0 and then 0.72. If I had 64 squares coloured out of 100, 64 hundredths, I don't have a whole, so it's going to be 0.72 and it's going to be 6.4. Now we need to be careful here. Quite a few people will put 0.5, but that's not correct, because 0.5 is the same as 0.50. 0.5 is 5/10, and we know that 5/10 would actually be 50 squares coloured in. So for 5/100ths, we are going to need to put 0.05. And actually, when we're thinking about hundredths, notice we always have two decimal places. Two decimal places, two decimal places. When we were just thinking about tenths, I just had one decimal place. So let's have a look at hundredths now on a number line. Here I've got 4/10. Here I've got 5/10, or 4 strips of 10 and 5 strips of 10, thinking about our grid. So we know that this is equivalent to 0.40. We know that it's equivalent to 40 hundredths, or it's equivalent to 4/10. 4 different ways to write the same amount, and we've done enough exploration now, hopefully in our 100 square grid, to show why they are all equivalent to each other. So if this is 0.40, this can be 0.41, 0.42, 0.43. So A is going to be 0.44. See if you can work out what B would be. Well done. It's 0.48. And again, that's because we know that 0.5, 5/10, is the same as 50 hundredths. 5 rows of 10 is the same as 50 squares coloured in on my 100 square. Do you remember we proved that a moment ago? Here I've got 50 squares coloured in, but also I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of 10, which is 5/10. Now, if we have a go at this then, looking at place value counters, well, I've got 2/10 and 3 hundredths. So this is going to be equivalent to 0.23. Here I've got 6 hundredths. I hope no one thought it was 0.6. It's going to be 0.06. Remember, we're dealing in hundredths, 2 decimal places. Now, because this time I've got a whole number, I'm actually going to need to put a whole number before my decimal point. Now I can look at how many tenths and how many hundredths. 4/10, 2 hundredths. And some of you hopefully realising that, well, we're saying we've got 42 hundredths. And I was saying 4/10. Well, that's because this is our tenths column, if you remember. And we've got 4/10 in there. But we know that 4/10 is equivalent to 40 hundredths. 0.4, which is the 4/10, is the same as 0.40. Last of all then, you're going to meet some problems like this today. Now, the best way to do these problems is to do the ones that you definitely are convinced about first of all. Well, I know that this is 71 hundredths, and here the fraction says 71 hundredths. I know that this is 40 hundredths as a fraction, and here I've got it written in words. That makes the next part very easy for me, but nonetheless I do know that here I've got 3 hundredths, which is what it says here, and 6 hundredths at the top here. So good luck with today's problems. If you're now going back to do part 2, you'll see they're all about hundredths. There are the 3 challenges again. Bronze and sapphire groups have the same challenge, silver challenge and gold challenge, and then the answers to part 2 are on the very, very last page. Good luck today, Year 4. Hope you enjoy your maths and enjoy the weekend when you get there. Thank you very much.